Hey y'all, what's up? This is Rosie, and I and a friend that I have named Jamie Jones on Facebook. We were talking about how some millennials should be considered honorary Gen X because they were raised basically the same as we were. And so I got to thinking, I have a bunch of cousins who were some that were born like either before or the same around the same time as me, and then I have some that were born, of course, after. And some of them are Zennials or early millennials who were raised the same as the Gen X kids were. And so I kind of agree that some of them should be considered that because they were raised the exact same way. I have one cousin, maybe two, who were born in 1983. And just like me and her older brother, who was born in 1980, she drank from the water hose. She waded in a wading pool in the front in the front yard. She played outside without her parents present. I mean, of course, her dad might have been home where she was not too far away from her grandmother's house, so there was always somebody nearby, but they weren't exactly watching her because we were far away from the house. And this girl is blocks away from her grandmother's house, blocks away from home, riding her bike. And she knew her way around. She knew she was safe, so she had no reasons to worry. But I mean, you never know what's going to happen away from home, but that's just how we lived back then. We felt safe because we were around friends, we were around neighbors, we were around family. And so, yeah, she, as a millennial, as an early millennial, grew up the same way we did. And so of course, we never thought about the whole generational thing when I was coming up. This whole Gen X thing, I mean, I didn't hear about Gen X until sometime in the 1990s, and grunge was out and people were noticing how apathetic a lot of us Gen Xers were, about how we seemed like we didn't care about anything, about how we seemed a little more not as happy go lucky maybe as our older siblings or as our parents. And so they just called us Generation X. I saw news reports. I even showed a clip of it, I think. I might not have, I don't know. But I found some of those news reports on YouTube. And when I first saw news reports about my generation and they called us Generation X, I thought that was the coolest sounding thing ever. And so I was like, yeah, I'll freaking take it. And so, yeah, but um, I recently, like maybe 2 years ago, heard the term Zennial. And Zennials are basically people who were born in the late 70s and, excuse me, sorry, they were raised on analog but adapted to the changing technology. We were raised without cell phones. We were raised without having a computer in every home. We were raised without certain technological advantages that started coming along and evolving as we grew up. But as soon as we could afford those things and we bought those things, we knew how to adapt to them. And so that is basically what a Zennial is. A Zennial was basically raised the same as Gen X, but then adapted to changes as they came along. And millennials, some of them were raised the same as we were, even if they were born like in the later millennial stages, especially if they grew up with Gen X brothers and sisters and boomer parents. And they had to be raised the same as we were because that's just how their parents were. And and they didn't see anything wrong with it. We didn't notice anything bad about it, or, it was just how things were. And so, like I said, I didn't hear about the whole millennial and Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I didn't hear about all of these things until fairly recently, like sometime in the 2000s. And they started divvying up the generations. And some generations had more time than our generations do. Like, there were some generations that had like 20 years or so. I think that Gen X had like 15 years from 65 till 80. And it's like, why give us less time and everybody else more? It made no sense. The whole generational thing, it makes no sense to me. But at the same time, I don't want to say that it's wrong. I don't want to say that it's not cool. I loved how I grew up. Well, there are some aspects of it I could have done without. I could have done without the high school bullying. I could have done without spankings. I could have done without the things that I went through as a child. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, there are videos on my channel, believe me. But as far as the movies, the music, the television shows, how we played outside, the friends, the snacks, the clothes, all of that, as far as all of that goes, I loved it. And I wouldn't change that for anything. I don't care that we grew up without computers, because to us, we didn't need those things. We had video games, video game consoles, and maybe it's not as cool and as graphic as the video games that are out now, but we had to use our imaginations to see what those things would have been like if we could see it in real life. And man, I miss those times. Honestly, sometimes I wouldn't want to go back, because I wouldn't want to have to do all of those things over. But some things I do want to go back to, like having my mom here, like how food tasted back then, like how it felt to get out of school on the last day of school before summer and realize that you had 2 to 3 months to play and to sleep late and to play with your friends. And even as a teenager, with me talking on the phone with my friend and going to her house to hang out and spend the night and have sleepovers and watch Headbangers Ball on Saturday and go out on Friday to the mall and just do all this different stuff. And so yeah, going back to what I talked about last week, that's why we're obsessed with the past. But yeah, I do agree that some millennials can be considered Gen X in a way, because they were raised the same way. But obviously that's not how it works. So there are some millennials who absolutely hate Gen X, and that's fine. We don't give a damn. But there are some who want to sit at our table, quote unquote. And some Gen Xers are saying, if you can answer these questions, if you know this certain history, then yeah, you can be considered honorary Gen X, and you can sit with us and hang out with us. And yeah, I'll go along with that, because I believe that most of my cousins, if not all of them, will know those answers. They will get them right, and they will sit at the table just as comfortable, feeling like they belong. But yeah, I do believe that some millennials should be considered honorary Gen X, because they were raised the same as us, and it was no different, and we didn't see anything up with that. It just was how it was. But anyways, you guys, I'm gonna go. In the description, you will find my PayPal, Cash App, and GoFundMe. And my GoFundMe is different because I had to redo it. But if you would consider helping me out, I would really appreciate it. And I thank you in advance. Follow me on my socials. Links will be in the bio. If you want to be a part of the tribe, hit the subscribe button. I'll be glad to have you no matter what generation you're from. I'm going to go. Once again, love you guys. Bye for now.